to my studio. This is Rebecca from Pt2, and I'm here this morning to grind up the hydrangea blooms that were dried that you saw in the last video that I gathered while helping my mother. And I saved a few to show you just how not that it's any huge mystery how to add dried flowers, but hydrangeas are a little bit different because they have all these little multiple stems, and you do want to try to keep some of those stems out, but it's going to be sort of impossible to keep them all out. But I am going to make an effort, and I'm just showing you a little bit how I did that. I've opened the new blender, and that's what I have here. I am not going to blend on camera. That's just too noisy and too much editing afterwards to turn the sound off. And so I'll do just a little before and after, I think. And then once I'm done and I got them to the stage that I want to make paper, then I'll be sifting any hard pieces of the stem. I'll sift that out. So we're almost ready, and yeah, that's packed pretty tight. I'll have to bring in my wooden spoon to help me in the process, because on the dry stuff it does kind of just chop at the bottom, so you have to kind of move it around a little. Okay. So ever since I saw these, it's like, oh, I want to make some paper. I want some paper that looks like this, that's this color. So we're going to see if we achieve that today. So this is the first process. I'm going to turn the camera off, though, while I actually chop it, and then I'll show it to you afterward, and we'll continue on. So the new blender works really well. It makes it very, very fine, which is good. I did leave some what I call chunky pieces. Some of the blooms almost intact. This one I'll just tear a little bit. Enough that when you make the paper and you get some of these larger pieces, you can tell what the flower actually was. And that's okay, but I did need the bulk of it chopped up really well. So this is what it looked like, and I think that's going to make some pretty paper. Now the base of this paper is going to be book pages and copy paper. I want it to be like a cream color with this added. That's the goal that I have planned. So now I've got to rework my workstation since I'm doing the paper inside. So that's going to take a minute. But I'll be starting then doing the paper pulp and that sort of thing in just a little bit. I've not had my morning coffee yet, so I think I might sit down with a cup of coffee before I go any further. But I really wanted to get this done and see how the blender did, and I'm pleased with it. In fact, I don't think I'm going to have to there might be a couple little things that I might have to take out that would leave a hard place in the paper, but it's chopped up so well that they're going to be kind of few and far between. So I shall return with the other blender set up, and again, I won't have it making the noise, but I'll show you the before and after, and that process of filling up my tub and that sort of thing. Well, I'm ready to start making the paper pulp. What I have in here is a mixture of book pages and copy paper. This was mixed together in a bag that I chopped up. I don't know if you can see that, while I was at my daughter's, and it's a ratio of about 2 book pages to 1 copy paper, give or take a little. And so so I'm not going to actually pulp it on the camera because too noisy, but I am just going to show you that I filled it up with my 3 handfuls that I mentioned in the previous video, and now I'm pouring in hot water. This is just from the tap, city water, so it'll have a little chlorine and, you know, whatever city water has in it, and I'm filling it all the way to the top. When you get a pitcher to fill with, I recommend getting a pitcher that does not drip here, because it ends up all down in your electrical buttons and things like that. I did have pitchers that were half this size and a different spout, and it became problematic with the drippage. So and also underneath I have just a piece of waterproof fabric I found at the thrift store, and it was about the size of a twin sheet. It's got a lightweight vinyl coating on the back with just a cotton on the front. Now, my wooden spoon was at the bottom of my tub where I store all of my placemats that I'm about to use to put this slurry into. And so I just kind of push everything down so that when I put the lid on this, it don't catch any paper. And I'm banging the camera. I'm not used to doing this with the camera above me, so if I bang it, then hopefully it won't make you seasick. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the lid on it now. I'm going to go through my process of pulping it using this particular blender. Has a blend, grind, fruit smoothie, frozen drink, green smoothie, milkshake, and ice crush. And I'll be going through each one of those for about 10 to 15 seconds each, and then I'll see where it is and decide if I want to do it a little more. So making the pulp doesn't take that long. It's just noisy, so I can't do it late at night after my husband's gone to bed. The book pages in here obviously had ink on them because it's book pages, so it gives the paper or the pulp a little bit of a blue tinge. But I'm going to be adding, I brought in some napkins where I pulled, some of these I won't use because I'll be using for other projects, but the solid white pieces of napkins, hopefully you can see that, where I've separated napkins and some white tissue I'm going to put in because I want this paper to be soft. In the next 2 batches of this, I'll be making it more from copy paper and tissue. When you do use tissue, use it in small bits and spread it throughout, because it will bind up if you put too much in your blades. So use it sparingly throughout, or just go ahead and rip it up, because it won't go through a shredder either without getting wrapped up in the teeth of the shredder. So you can go ahead and rip it up and put it in, and that will help the blades, it not get caught up in the blades so much. So I'm going to dump this and get my process started. I am almost ready to start the paper making process. I'm showing you how I'm starting the layering process. I have this that I showed in the previous video. It's the bottom, it's a waterproof layer. Also, the cloth I have under it is got a waterproof layer on the back. Then I take a discarded dish drainer bottom pad, and I put that next. Then I have a few placemats that are very coarse in their weave. don't know if you can see that. I'll bring it up a little, but you can see it's very coarse. And so I use these with the big weave first when I first put the paper down for it to start the drying process, and then I'll just keep layering these up until I'm done. I make 5 sheets at a time out of one size. I always start with my 9 by 12 if that's what I'm going to be making, or my biggest size. If I'm going to do a range, then I start with my biggest size, and that way if I need a little bit of extra pulp, then I can make it and just make it in a very small batch to finish out what I'm doing. But most of the time I just use it until it runs out with the different sizes. The other thing that I need to mention is that the more water you have as you use it, your paper will get thinner. So if you've done a full range of your batch and you don't want to do any more, don't want to add any more pulp to it, then you'll need to dip some water out. And I usually dip out 1 gallon at a time, try it out, see if it's if it's at a good consistency, and if not, I'll take a little more out. I've debated how best to do this, and I've decided just to set up a little my little dyeing bin under the camera. It's easier than trying to get out a tripod and figure that out. So I'm going to make 1 sheet of 5 by 7. One thing that I didn't mention in the previous video is I just have a couple of little 1 by square sticks that I broke it into, so I'd have 2 of them. And that helps drain and lets it give somewhere to sit. Another thing I did is the blue paper that you saw in the previous video, I chopped a few pieces of it up because some of the hydrangeas are losing their color. So I put some of the blue flecks in that were almost the same color just to help give it a pop. The other thing I want to mention also is that when the paper dries, it will dry lighter, not the particles like the blue, but the base paper that you put in, it will dry lighter than what it is wet in the slurry. So I just pulled out about 1 gallon and a quart of the mixture and added some water to it, and so here we go. And this water's very warm. Oh, look at that one petal right up in the very top. That's going to look good. I'm just slightly off here, but it'll be fine. So what I do here is bring those together and let it set, and I have some old dish towels just off screen that I'll dry my hands, because your hands will get wet. I've tried doing this with gloves, but ultimately you need to be able to feel, and my hands are small and gloves are always too long, so it just doesn't work. Okay, so I'm taking the deckle off, and so I'm just left with the paper on the mold. And so what I'm doing now, I'm just letting it drain a little this way, and actually I'm going to turn it this way. It is slightly thinner here, but not enough to notice, I don't think. Now you can see, and from the thumbnail on the previous video, you can see it looks quite thick. I mean, it looks like it's, a good 1/8 of an inch thick, and that's actually about the thickness that you want your slurry to be once you've put it on, because when you lay it down and press it, it's going to flatten. And so if it's very thin on here, then you'll end up with very thin spots on your finished piece, or it might dry so thin that it actually breaks, and of course you don't want that either. Okay, now because I have a limited amount of space, I'm going to go through the whole process with this piece, and then so there'll be some pausing back and forth with the video, but already don't that look really pretty? And that background that looks sort of gray, it will dry a little whiter so that this will really stand out when it's done. Now, one thing I did go through and try to pick out as many stems as possible, but you might have a pair of tweezers or something that if there's something in that you just don't want or is going to create an issue writing, like that one. But you don't want to disturb it too much, because wherever you pull something out, it's going to make a hole. Now, if there was a big stem in there that when I pulled it out it left a hole, I can do one of two things. I can pull up some more slurry and get a little wad and put it in, but most of the time it don't fit in good. So what I would do 9 times out of 10 is dump it back in and make another page. And your first ones are going to have a lot more stuff in them than the next ones. Now, for the purpose of this video, I have my stack slightly different, and of course I'm making it at a different place. Usually I would actually do this part on top of my washing machine, but what you'd need is, again, just something waterproof. I have an old desk drawer that's the same size as my washing machine top, minus maybe 2 inches on one side, and I do all my crafting on that. But what I've put here is my waterproof barrier. This is a hand towel that's you can tell where I've made paper before. And it's doubled, and I found over the years using a towel like this, and then I put over it a very thin 100% cotton, very fine weave napkin, a fabric napkin. So what I do, and now when I'm doing this, if I'm doing this size, I'll get, like, if possible 4 out of this, but definitely 3. But for the process, this process, I'm going to just put it face down like this, take that little piece of extra out of it. Now this is where your sponge comes in. Now the thing I do that makes the towel absorb most of the water so you're not getting it in your sponge is I push it down like this, and with the screen, if it hadn't drained as long as it did, you'd see water bubbling up slightly. But you're not going to see that exactly. But what I do now is I just go through. Now you don't want to press so hard that you pop your staples or pop your screen from your staples and that sort of thing. But you want to give it a good push, and that's barely wet. Most of the water is going to be on the underside because that towel is pulling it through. And this is also, you can see the importance of having something that absorbs as opposed to something that repels water. So I've paid quite a few dollars for napkins and placemats especially that repelled water, so it just didn't work. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to test this and see how it works. And as you can see, it's just stuck, but look how flat it is. So here, check that out. That's a little rough. It's not too bad. Okay. And if I have places like this that I can take something off and it doesn't leave a hole that goes all the way through, this is, if you're doing just petals, you will not have this problem. But if you're doing something that has tiny stems like the hydrangea, then you will have to pull. Ooh, that's a big one. And you won't be able to see it now, but that'll be a little bit of a thin spot there. But if you have something with stems, just be aware that there might be things that you have to pull out. I'm going to take that one up. Okay, now here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to press this lightly. Now, once you've done this, and if it doesn't come off, here's most of the time how I do mine. I just give that corner a little roll, and give this corner a little roll, and it will pull right off, and you have your piece of paper. Now I see another couple of places here that I'll pull off. Move that to the side. Then I have some, this is a placemat, believe it or not, but it's little, so that's what I use for these little ones. And then I'll just smooth that corner back out. This is what I was talking about in the other video, just patting it flat. You're not pressing, you're just patting it flat, and then you'd take another one, put on top. You would do your next sheet, and you just keep stacking them up until you were done. So so that is the a short demonstration. I'm really loving how this is looking, though. I just love it. But yeah, paper is strong once you get the water out of it. And also, this is where I was talking about. I hope that you can see this pattern on the back is the pattern of the plastic, plastic screen on the back of the mold and deckle. So that has its own kind of built-in. The metal screen that I use is finer than that and leaves no real pattern on the paper. So so I'll put this to the side, and I'll put something heavy on it to start and squeeze the water out, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's dry. Now that'll probably be 3 to 5 days, depending. I don't put a fan or anything like that. On the last day, if there's some very lightweight damp stuff, and I mean barely noticeable dampness, I might leave it out and let it air dry and finish. But if you do that too soon, it will buckle and ripple, and you want your paper as flat as possible. So my advice is keep it under something heavy until it is completely dry. Keep changing out your mats, because that's what absorbs the water. Without that, it's just going to lay there as a damp piece of paper. So I'm going to continue to make some large size paper, and I'll show you that at the end when they are dry. But this is the process. And now I haven't put on the tiles yet, because that's at the very end, but the rest of this is self-explanatory. So thank you very much for watching. Ask me any questions that you want to. I will try to answer them either from experience or do more research, but I've been making paper now. I looked at some of my first sheets. At the back end of 2019 was when I started making paper. In fact, I have the paper, the very first sheets of paper that I made that inspired me. I will get them and show them to you and tell you the story behind it real quick, and then I'll bid you adieu. Here are 3 sheets of the very first paper that I made in the fall of 2019. My daughter and her husband went to Joshua Tree and I can't remember the other ones, but anyway, up into Oregon and Washington to some parks, and she said, "What do you want me to bring you back?" Because I house sat for her for 3 weeks while they were gone. And I said, "I want some flowers, something that, don't grow out here." So she picked me, it probably was only like 10 little sprigs of plants, and of course they had dried by the time she got back. And that inspired me to make this first batch of paper. So I'm going to try to get it up here. Well, I can't move my light very much more, but anyway, I did pretty much the same process as I do now, but I had different screen, different everything, and I was just flying by the seat of my pants, as it were. But what I like is how thin it turned out. I mean, that is just so thin, and I actually have one thinner. The very first piece of paper that you make will be the thickest one. That's just how it works, which is this one. I used a lot of tissue in this, so it's very soft. I love it, and I've had it all this time and never used it or anything because I just love it. And you know, once it's gone, it's gone. So yeah, I just love it. Just love it. This one, though, as you can see, is a little thicker. It's maybe minute, but it is thicker. The one thing that I like, now this is thinner, and I think this must have been the last one I made because it's patchy. I don't know if you can see it under the light, but it's patchy. And it was well, I couldn't add any more anything really. So this one's a little, you know, suspect, but it is thin. But the one thing that I like about doing the mold and deckle and then pressing each individual one out is that you get the rough edges, that gives it the handmade look. Now this is from the exact same mold and deckle, the 9x12 that I showed you. Those picture frames, all of the picture frames that I have showed you that I made myself, I have used from the beginning, especially the 9x12. That's the one I started with. And it's never warped, bulked, or done anything. The only thing that I've done is change the screen that I had on the back of it. I went from my husband gave me some of that vinyl like screen that you put on a screen door instead of the metal one, and I used that one time, pulled it off because it just, you know, went like a hammock in there, so that didn't work. And then he gave me some screen that he had pulled off of a screen door, because he's our landlord's maintenance man, and he's takes care of 45 rental properties, so he's always bringing in something. But it had a few bends in it, and I needed it flat, so I just ordered the roll, which I did link in the previous video. It was longer than I thought. It was 40 feet, and I used the whole thing. I don't know how that happened, but I did. But anyway, this is the very first paper that I made, and I will keep this for as long as I possibly can. I won't be using it for anything. It's my inspiration. And at some point in time, when I get a real studio craft room, I probably will frame it and put it on the wall, as, you know, the one that started it all. So thank you all very much for watching. I will be back with another video sometime in the coming days.